What makes a good captain or leader?
Uh, a number of things. A number of things, in my experience, make a good captain and leader. I think there's lots of different types of captain out there. When I was thinking about, anticipated some sort of question like this might come up, and I was thinking, what type of captains have I played against? You're going to have captains that are going to get you the ball in the, in the 65th minute, and wobble around 9 players and reverse one in top right. And then you're going to get captains that are subtly commanding the game from the back. And then you're going to get captains that just organise and motivate their team off the pitch. And then you're going to get a combination of all of them. I think it's sort of what type of captain you are really should depend on the team. And what I mean by that is that some teams need, a paternal sort of captain figure where you're a voice for the team, a voice for the players, someone to confide in, someone to talk to. Sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes you just need an ultra competitive athlete who you look up to and guides you in terms of your your want to achieve. So back to the question, what do I think makes a good captain? I think it's someone who recognises what your team needs and delivers at that time, what you think is best. And you're never going to get it right. You're never going to tick all the boxes as a skipper. But what you can do is make an improvement on, as I said, for me, captain in hockey is a bit of a label. And maybe that's the same for lots of sports, but it's a bit of a label, and really your involvement in the team as a social concept is much more important. Where do you place yourself? What do you do for players that aren't engaging either socially or on the pitch very well with other players? How do you help resolve that? Without being like a sort of quasi police force or something. How do you bring the best out in everyone in the team? How do you bring the best out of the team?
Have you had any specific issues to deal with? Can you give me an example of how you've had to cope with something whilst on tour or as a tournament?
I think like any team, of an occasion you'll get some frustration amongst players. That might be between 2 players or between player and coach or whatever it is, but normally it's healthy. I think normally it's a sign that the team is it's ramping up, it's being competitive. So normally and I say that like you sort of obviously have to judge that as to where you see it going, but it's not a bad thing to have a bit of confrontation and a bit of frustration amongst players sometimes. The challenge is where that becomes disruptive to the rest of the group, and have we had that, and have I seen that in the role that I've had at Cyprus Hockey? Yeah. And that was dealt with by leadership very well. And you have to think about the good of the team in those situations, because ultimately, a unfocused, disrupted team where something like that is happening is a real negative to the the other 17, 16 players in the squad. So
you've got any examples of how a bit of mediation has worked out?
I can tell you that mediation does work, because sometimes you just need someone from outside of someone from outside of the confrontation to put things into perspective, right? So in a hypothetical scenario, say if 2 players had an argument with one another over, could be whatever, right? if that's on the pitch, then the last thing you want as a skipper is for that to continue into the changing room, into the hotel, into the next day at breakfast, right? And so mediation in that scenario is captain involved or leadership involved, right? Sort it out. In terms of, let's think about this logically between you, and that is a scenario where you would 100% always step in. The scenarios I was talking about earlier, where it's good, a bit of vice, those are obviously those are microaggressions, right? They're much less, they're much more manageable, where they don't become a problem.
You mentioned something earlier about different styles, different approaches to the game, different perspectives on the game. One of the topics in this series so far has come up has been if the leadership, the coach or the captain or whoever sets that, and we'll come on to that later on, but whoever sets an ethos and most of the team is going with it, if one player or a minority within that group are not buying into that culture, how long are you patient? How much do you compromise? Do you bring them along, or do you cut them adrift?
That is a big challenge. That is always a big challenge, and that would be, in honesty, that it would be a challenge, for any team at any level, because you've got a group of 18 players moving one way, or you hope that they're moving one way, and if you do have someone swimming against the tide, I think it's more about creating an environment where that person swimming against the tide feels like they can swim against the tide and make their point known and is heard and listened to, but at the same time there is an arbitrary sort of, but there is an end point. There is a point where there is a decision made, and that player needs to have the ability to accept that final outcome. So you have to breed that from quite early on, I think, where you breed engagement, you breed independent thought, but at the same time you realize that there is an end decision, there is an end final outcome, and it may not always go with you, and it often goes with the majority. And if a player cannot get their head around that, and a player cannot accept that, then that's really on them to remove themselves from the team, I think, because that's, and I don't think really you'd get that very often. In fact, yeah, I think there are obviously times when players have different opposing views to the majority of the players or to the coaching staff, and that sort of independent thought is encouraged. It always should be, but when I don't think it often gets to the point where that becomes problematic. But it goes back to the point I was talking to earlier, where if it does become disruptive to the team, then that's when it becomes a problem from a skipper's perspective anyway. That it becomes a problem that you either need to deal with or need to raise to senior management to deal with, i.e. coaches.
So how do you deal with that as a captain? You mentioned earlier on about getting defenders chatting to each other about tactical stuff, and then midfielders chatting together and having some input and control. Forwards, attackers similarly. Is that the time for players to contribute to a discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that players should contribute. At every point. There's certain points where I think you just have to shut up and listen. Those are team talks before the game. Shut up, listen to the coach. Half time, shut up, listen to the coach. And like maybe in a debrief during the actual physical presentation or video analysis during the presentation, there are times after that when you can have a constructive discussion, and you should have a constructive discussion, because I'm sure Tom will admit that you can't expect always to be 100% right about absolutely everything. Independent thought should be encouraged. Players should feel they should feel agency. They should feel like they are making choices that matter, and so those discussions should happen, especially in the tournament, across the whole week. But like I said, there are times when that should just not happen. And I think as a captain, you set the tone and you hope that the players will follow. You can't force anyone's hand. You can't force people to do things in a certain way. But you set a tone and you expect the rest of the team to follow suit. And then, you know, those players are disencouraged from behaviours which are disruptive in doing so.